영권
골나갑니다. 공동입니다. 공동입니다. 역전을 만듭니다. 이첨의 장면을.
Winners of the AFC Champions League 2020, Ulsan Hyundai.
You're listening to the K-League United podcast, proud partner of Football Nation Radio.
Hello, annyeonghaseyo. Welcome to the K-League United live show. Shouldn't you be in bed? Matthew Bint here, past the watershed, as your host today in the virtual bunker ahead of tonight's AFC Champions League Final between Al Hilal and K-League's very own Pohang Steelers. Joining me is one of two K-League writers in your area. It's Paul Neat.
Hello there, how are you?
I'm good, Paul. It's been a while since we've been on a pod together. Well, it's not really a pod. I keep thinking it's a pod.
It could be.
It could be if you like listening to things after they've happened, which this pod or live show will be. But yes, it's been a while, Paul. What have you been up to?
All right, yeah. It's you can tell it's a big occasion because I've got the big light on.
Well, my light is slowly fading here, but that's because, as you can tell, it's quite dark here. It is 11:36. We're coming to you a lot later than we would normally be doing these kind of live shows. So please apologize if we do apologize ahead of time if we start lagging a little bit, and I'm already stumbling over my words. So we're going to get into it. We've got no Ryan Walters today. Eagle-eyed viewers will have already noticed that his presence is missing. He's gone to the AFC in person, Paul, to make sure John Nam Dragons ACL 2022 license is it's gone through smoothly, and it looks like it has. Sources say that the law of the K2 party has swung it for John Nam there.
That's what they say, yeah. And obviously no Pete either. Pete's not here either. He got his bike stolen, apparently, while starting Gwangju looking for Jonathan. So, just the two of us.
Yeah, just the two of us, but still plenty to go through. Coming up in just under, about 80 minutes now, we're going to have the kickoff between Pohang and Al Hilal, and we will be previewing the match. We're going to be looking at the lineups as they come in. But first, we're going to just go through the rundown. We're going to go through some news. Going to give you some announcements as well. We're going to go through some magic moments so far from Pohang's run and the tournament overall. We'll also have snippets from our recent Alex Grant and Shin Jin Ho interviews. They were on the recent podcast, but we're going to put a couple of snippets here that are relevant to the games. And, if there's any questions you have, please get them in the comments and we'll answer them at the end. But first, Paul, housekeeping.
Yes, just a bit of housekeeping. Some previews and some articles we've got up on kleague.com and kleagueunited.com. There is a cup final week thing up now. There is some time to read it after this, or even if the first half's a bit slow. Looking at not just tonight's game, obviously Pohang against Al Hilal, but also on Wednesday there is the FA Cup final between Jeonnam Dragons and Daegu FC, and for that, Ryan Walters speaks to Jung Myul for a special podcast episode that is out now. But you can watch that. You can listen to that later. We also have written interviews with Alex Grant, 2 parts of that one, and Shin Jin Ho, who we'll obviously hear from in a little bit. All that kind of stuff as well. And we also have something to talk about is we have an announcement as well. Matthew Binns will be making his commentary debut. So KLU is back in the commentary booth. This time it will be for Jeonbuk versus JG United on the last day of the season. So with it all on the line, Binns, you're going to be in the commentary booth making your debut. How does that feel?
I was hoping that the title would be done. I was hoping Jeonbuk would have beaten Suwon at the weekend. Ulsan lost, and we would just have a nice, boring match to talk about. Instead, it could be a dramatic title decider, and I'm going to have to maintain my poise and try and remain non-biased throughout. But luckily, you should be leading the way. I'm just there to provide a little bit of colour, a little bit of insight. So hopefully,
well, for me, it's going to be the second time this year. But it's like I'm Ebom Young just for the ACL. Get wheeled out twice a year. Here we go. Here's my bit done. The Jeonbuk goalkeeper, of course. But so that's that bit of housekeeping, bit of announcements to make, and that's coming up soon.
Very soon, yeah. Just a week and a half away, final game of the season. And yep, Jeonbuk versus Jeju. So if you're watching, you can watch on tv.kleague.com or any of the international rights holders, such as OneFootball and things. You'll be able to watch them on there.
It's also worth pointing out that Ryan is cup tied for that game. His involvement with the Suzuki Cup later that day renders him unavailable. So they've had to drag in Bins, kicking and screaming. Rather be in the stands, I'm sure, but with a microphone in your hand rather than a tin, you know, still might be quite an exciting afternoon for you.
Yeah, some would say I was actually the first choice, and
well, logical choice, surely.
The logical choice to commentate on Jeonbuk, but we're not talking about Jeonbuk this evening, and we're not talking about Ulsan. We're not talking about the title race even, because we're talking about Pohang Steelers. Yes, bottom half Pohang Steelers. They're in the Champions League final, and it's looking like an interesting match against Al Hilal. But before we kick into gear about that, we're going to go through some recent ACL news. ACL licenses have been announced. Now, what this is, it's clubs have to apply for a license to play in this competition. So the licenses for 2022, of the 22 K-League clubs, 18 have been accepted. Only Gimcheon Sangmu, Gyeongnam FC, Seoul Eland and Bucheon didn't apply. Gimcheon aren't allowed to compete. Obviously, they're an army team. The army teams aren't allowed in the Champions League. But yeah, it's kind of damning for Gyeongnam, Seoul, Eland and Bucheon, who clearly got eyes on other prizes than qualifying for the Champions League, it seems. Jeonnam have applied, meaning that if they do win the FA Cup, they are allowed to enter. Meanwhile, Songnam, Jeju and Suwon FC, they were granted licenses, but there's an asterisk next to them. They were granted licenses with sanctions. Paul, you spoke to someone at Songnam to find out what was going on with that.
I did, yes. Like you said, Songnam, Jeju, and Suwon FC have got like an asterisk next to their name, and I wanted to know what this sanctions meant. Like, for me, when I see sanctions, it means the UN have put sanctions on somebody, Iran or North Korea, and you can't make nuclear bombs. I don't think that's quite what these sanctions mean for the ACL. But yeah, I spoke to somebody quite high up at Songnam, who I've known for a few years, just to ask what it was. And he told me that it's a goalkeeping coach license issue. So I think that might give you an insight to what kind of things you can have. You can either be rejected for, or you have like a conditional approval. So maybe the goalkeeping coach or other coaches at the other teams haven't quite got their badges yet. It might explain for some, obviously Kim Do-kyun at Suwon FC, a relatively inexperienced manager, might not have done all his badges just yet. So that might be why they've got that little asterisk there.
There was an example of this actually at the end of the 2016 season post-split, where I think Jeonnam Dragons in the days when they were a top six side made it to the top half, and they had to put their manager down as an assistant manager because he didn't have the ACL qualification badges. So if they ended up in the Champions League positions, they couldn't go through. So he was demoted into the coaching staff, and the assistant manager promoted purely for the sake of just in case they qualify. And it happened to another team as well. I can't remember off the top of my head. It is these kind of things usually when they say sanctions. But does this mean that K-League managers are more qualified than J-League? Because when you look at the list, there's a considerable number of J-League teams with sanctions.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, it's interesting that only because when you look at other countries, like you say in Japan, so many of them have got these asterisks next to them, but only 3 in K-League, so not too bad. But I wanted to some of the criteria. I won't go into all of it because it's quite long, but some of the criteria that teams need to meet to be able to get an ACL license or any AFC competition is divided into 3 or 4 or 5 sections. The sporting criteria: you have to have a youth team. You have to have teams between age 15 and 21, and 10 to 14, and 1 team under the age of 10. You have to provide medical care to all players and have comprehensive medical insurance. So things like that. Obviously, the stadiums need to be owned or contracted to the club for that season, that kind of thing. You need to have certain kind of staff members. You need to have like a general manager, a media officer, security, a doctor, physio, all that kind of stuff. There's certain legal documentation that's needed. And also what I found was quite interesting is financial. No pending transfer fees. if you got anything that's outstanding in that regard, so when you show your books, any outstanding transfer fees, you might have your ACL license knocked back. So that's quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And speaking of ACL, there are some rules for 2022. 5 subs are going to be kept in place for next year. There is a relaxation on foreign player registration, allowing clubs to register any number of foreign players, but to keep to the existing 3+1 quota for the competition itself. Sorry, Paul. Could you just explain this one a little bit more to me?
So this is basically what it looks like it means. This is my interpretation of this: is that you can register, you can have in your squad, you register in your squad of players any number of foreign players that you wish, but in terms of in the actual game on a match day, you still have to adhere to 3+1. So this obviously wouldn't really affect K-League teams at all in terms of their playing staff. Obviously, the K-League plays to the same kind of rules. But actually, I'll tell a lie, it wouldn't it? Because of the ASEAN quota rule and stuff like that. If they've got any teams that have a 5th foreigner and that kind of thing, they would be able to register them in the squad. But it's basically it's been done because of the demands of the COVID-19 pandemic and stuff like that, and heavier player workload and that kind of thing. But also what it meant as well for this year's competition, Dayan and his team in Hong Kong, they have quite a lot of foreign players on their roster. But he even said to me when I interviewed him that if they were able to take all their squad that they have for the Hong Kong Premier League, they would have got out of the group. So obviously you can't play them all at the same time, but when they're in the competition next time, you might be able to see a little bit of a difference there.
Indeed. And we're also going to move on to tonight's game as well, the ramifications of Pohang. Now, if Pohang win or lose, we should say, Pohang winning would have significant impact on the league. We've seen some confusion in recent weeks with Jeju and Suwon. Obviously, they're trying to fight for this ACL qualification spot. But if Pohang to win tonight, it will actually kill the race for third dead. So because Pohang would be the champions and Korea is a top 6 seeding nation, that means that Pohang would take the last playoff spot, which is 3rd place in the K-League at the moment. So I guess what this kind of means is if you're a Jeonbuk supporter like myself, having Daegu and Jeju in your next 2 games and having their hopes for a third place completely killed off, you want Pohang to win and try and motivate those sides. Other teams, though, perhaps not so much.
Yeah. Well, speaking of next year as well, actually, I've got some more kind of news about the Australian clubs as well, because obviously they withdrew this year, didn't they? Now, there was some kind of speculation or assumption that they may have some kind of punishment for that. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, it was decided that it was determined that the withdrawals of the Australian clubs was force majeure. No, that's not the singer from Ultravox. That's Midure. But what it means is a common clause in contracts that essentially frees both parties from liability or obligation when an extraordinary event or circumstance is beyond their control, which I'm guessing is because obviously there was no Kim Shin-wook in the ACL this year. So obviously that's unforeseen. We're not going to take part.
No, exactly.
Definitely not the pandemic anyway.
Yeah. Shall we move on to the match tonight then? Well, the tournament so far. Let's talk about some of the magical moments we've seen through this competition.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's been a long tournament, because when I think back to the group stages, it seems like such a long time ago. Like it wasn't that long ago, really, but like that, it's been in this like 3 batches of fixtures, or actually 4 now with the final. It seems like, like obviously usually the group stage starts in February or even January. It seems like that again. It seems like it's been that long ago since it all began.
Yeah, it felt a lot different at the time, being in the hub this year. And Paul was kind of skipping around a little bit here, but what moments have stood out for you so far, really, just in the tournament as a whole?
Well, yeah, many moments to choose from, but I would say that I think the one that stands out would have to be Alex Grant's equaliser against Ulsan. That sort of that huge goal that forced extra time, and it was just because it was a great header. It was a good cross in as well. The timing of it. It was the 89th minute, I think it was. The celebration. I think a celebration is more enjoyable to watch as a fan when it's not been planned. Alex Grant, I'm sure, with his two goals before that, and they came in K-League, I don't think has got like he hasn't got a celebration set, thought out in his mind. He just went for it. It was just sheer elation in that moment. And it was against Ulsan, Pohang against Ulsan. Pohang had it looked like they've come to the end of their road. They'd done very well with their sort of injury hit squad and the unlikely heroes. You thought, okay, it's been a valiant effort. You've made it to the semis. You can hold your heads high after this. But then that happened, and it was a great header. It was just absolute scenes. And then from that on, obviously, from that moment, going into extra time and then pens, you just felt that Pohang had it. It was just such a momentum shift as well. How about you? What would you say was your standout moment?
I'm going to say you actually took mine. I was going to go for that. So I'm going to choose a different one. And it's not going to be Lee Dong-young's Wonder Strike because I spoke about that enough on a recent podcast. But one thing I think, friend of the podcast, regular on here, Dejan Damjanovic, this was the season where he finally got back into ACL after being with Daegu last year, helping them to qualify but not being kept on. And obviously had the disappointment with Suwon a couple of seasons ago. So this was it. He had signed for Hong Kong side Kichi, and he got that much needed goal. And not only that, he got four. He got 4 goals in this competition, and just showing that he can still cut it at this level. And great to see. And yes, he may have surpassed Lee Dong-guk in the standings, but it's a fantastic achievement considering he's a foreign player in Asia. So his time is his time is up usually a lot quicker at different clubs, for example. So he will, as we saw, Seoul, they moved him on because they wanted to get a fresher striker in. Suwon moved him on. They wanted to get a fresher striker in. Daegu moved him on. And he still managed to beat this record. So I think that was just an absolute fantastic moment all round.
Yeah, absolutely. And he wasn't bothered about this, but he came so close to 200 K-League goals. He ended on 198, and although that wasn't a record, it was obviously he's still a record holder in terms of a foreign player in the K-League. But it would have been nice to get that 200. Unfortunately, he didn't because it was a shortened season last year, 27 games and not the usual 38. And so it was great to see him be able to do that, have his sort of his moment, his kind of happy ending, and really after that went on to go and win the Hong Kong Premier League title to add another medal to his collection. So it's been a great season for him. And you're right, it was a real great moment. But Vince, what would you say was the best game of this year's tournament?
I know what many other people might say, but I'm not going to say it. I think so. I'm going to say it was actually the semi-final featuring Pohang. I think Pohang versus Ulsan. It's a rivalry with history in this league, and to have it on such a large stage for the world to enjoy, and it was an enjoyable match. It was great. We had a red card, last minute equalizer, drama, and then all decided on penalties at the end. It was tense. It was exciting. It was the underdogs prevailing. We had fans back in the stadium as well. Yes, it was Jeonju. It was in Jeonju World Cup Stadium, but there were still fans there to some degree, and it was just a great display of what K-League can offer. Indeed.
Well, sorry, I am going to mention the game that you probably don't want me to mention, but I have to say the quarterfinals, Jeonbuk Ulsan. It was just what an advert that was for K-League. Two good teams going at it, and obviously because it was a one-off game, It was a great advert for knockout competition in continental football. Over one leg, it was all on the line on that particular occasion, and it was just a very, very end-to-end game. Either team could have won it, and it took that wonder strike from Lee Dong-kyung really in extra time. Anybody who was at that game, who bought a ticket, they certainly got their money's worth in terms of entertainment. If you're a home fan, you might not have been too happy with the outcome, but certainly for the Ulsan fans or for any neutrals, it was a great game. And I think that was probably, for me, among many, many good games throughout the course of this tournament, that was probably one of the best, if not the best.
Begrudgingly, I'll say it was an entertaining affair, probably for somebody. Definitely not me. But yes, we aren't talking about John Booker also, and we are talking about Pohang, and we are aware that team news has just come out. We are going to be getting to the team news and discussing it in shortly. But Paul, number of players have shone for Pohang, number of players we perhaps wouldn't have expected to shine for Pohang. So my question to you is, who would be your unsung hero before I ask for your standout player?
My unsung hero would be Kwon Wang-gyu, the centre-back. He's played in all 9 matches so far, one of only 2 Pohang players to do that. Kang Sang-woo was the other, but he went off in one of those games. So Kwon Wang-gyu has played in all of them. Only 2 yellow cards as well, which is I'm not sure if you're Roy Keane, you might be upset that he's not been getting smashing into people, but I think that shows a lot of discipline to sort of limit to just 2 yellow cards. And obviously he's formed a good partnership as well with Alex Grant, and having 2 centre backs that are settled, having that partnership, I think has really helped, because Pohang have been very unlucky with injuries in other areas of the field, but having that base, those 2, with Kwon Wang-gyu in particular, alongside Alex Grant, has been really, really important for them. How about you?
I've actually gone for Lee Jun. He's not exactly an unsung hero, I guess. You got a lot of praise after the last 2 games, but he's a keeper with just 8 career matches to his name, and all of them have come very recently. 2 in the Champions League in the quarterfinals and the semi-finals. Probably 2 of the biggest games in his career before tonight, because I can at least say he's starting this evening. And yeah, he's shown some really good reflexes, some good instincts as a goalkeeper. He has made some mistakes in the league, it should be said, but I think he's done really well. He's had to stand up and fill in, and I think he deserves all the praise in helping Pohang get this far in the competition.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's been kind of thrown in the deep end a bit. Played in games that he would never have expected himself to. In big games, he made that mistake. In the Ulsan game, the ball really shouldn't have spilled that. But he has. Yeah, you're right. He's come up big in big moments, in very, very big games, and I've definitely learned a lot from this season, this last sort of 10 games or so in particular.
Indeed. And before we move on to team news and things, Pohang standout player for you so far this season, Paul?
To me, it has to be Im Sang-hyop. I think he's just been a revelation in the league in particular, but in the Champions League, he scored 4 goals. 2 of those, of course, came against Nagoya in the quarters, 1 against Ratchaburi in a 2-0 win, and then 1 against JDT in a 4-1 win. Now, it's funny because actually I looked at Y-Scout earlier, and their XG, their expected goals for Im Sang-hyop in the Champions League, is at 2.92. Compare that to Opta stats, they said it was 2.06. So either way you look at it, he has obviously performed above himself in terms of expected goals. But in terms of some other stats that kind of reaffirm why I picked Im Sang-hyop, most key passes in ACL with 14. He also had 17 shot assists, which I'm not really sure what the difference is. Sort of a key pass is a shot assist, but Y-Scout has them as 2 separate things. Passing has been very good as well. Accurate passes to the final third have been very good, been accurate through passes. On a nice little stat as well, that he scored 6.14 goals more than expected in K-League this season with 10 of an XG of 3.86. and that doesn't include penalties. And he's been their best player in the league, but scored some very, very important goals in the ACL as well.
Indeed, he's really been a surprise package, I think, in this league. I've been in this competition, and I've been very pleased to see him do well. Maybe not all Suwon fans. Hi, Scott, if you're listening. But yes, I've actually chose Kang Sang-woo. It feels a bit of an obvious choice. It's difficult not to include him, given his prominence in the K-League. He's 4 goals and 8 assists in the division this season. He's not been as prominent in assists in the Champions League this year, but he has got 2 goals to his name, with 1 in each fixture against JDT. He is going to be a nuisance, though, and he is playing at left back today, but he is very capable at playing at a number of different positions. Just last week, he played for a period in the second half. He played as a striker against Gwangju for about 20-25 minutes. He's featured on the right side against Gangwon 2 games ago. He's been deployed behind the strikers in their win against Ulsan in the Champions League. So even though he's at left back tonight, and we know, and he's got that number 10 shirt, Paul, which traditional left back number. I know you keep track of these things, but he will probably start at left back tonight. But I think if Kim Ki-dong is looking to change things up, he's got the flexibility there, and Kang Sang-woo's certainly got the talent. So for me, he is the standout player to watch for Pohang this evening.
Yeah, he's a great player, and I hope to see him play more for the national team too. Obviously, Bento is well stocked, I think, with left backs, but he has been in the squad. Just made just 1 cap against Sri Lanka a while back. But yeah, I like watching him play. He's really blossomed, I think, over the last 18 months. And obviously, our Pohang columnist Shibaji Das has a great interview, sort of feature interview with him, where he talks about basically how that has happened. He came back from his spell with Sangju / Kimchon, and has just been superb for them. So, great player, and hopefully he'll have a good game tonight as well.
Indeed. So let's get on to tonight then, because we keep pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back. But tell us about the opposition that, Pohang will be up against.
Yes, so Al Hilal, they won it in 2019, just a couple of years ago, 1991 and 2000. So that's 3 wins from 7 finals reached. That includes the old Asian Cup format and obviously the Asian Champions League. Yeah, they won it in 2019, but they were disqualified last year after their squad was hit by COVID. They were unable to field a full team, and according to the Deccan Herald, they had a reported 31 infections of players and officials during their group stage, and then they were only able to name 9 players and 2 sub goalkeepers for their final Group B game with Shabab Al Ali Dubai. So they were disqualified. So they obviously will be feeling a little bit hard done by. They have reached the final and were looking really to sort of reclaim their crown. It's almost like a wrestling angle, the undisputed champion of Asia. But some of the little tidbits about Al Hilal, they've lost only their 2 previous games against South Korean opposition without scoring a single goal. Sorry, they have lost their only 2. They faced Ulsan in 2012, lost 1-0 at home and 4-0 away. So although they are a powerhouse of Asian football, certainly over in the west side of Asia, they haven't had a great record against the K-League teams.
Indeed. We'll show the lineups here. I know Al Hilal, if you can see that's the actual official team sheet. We've got a graphic for Pohang. Al Hilal still haven't quite got their graphic yet, but this is the team sheet for Al Hilal. They are playing actually in a 4-2-3-1 formation. So if we go from the back, it's Al Mayuf in goal, Al Dawsari left back, Al Mafaj and Jang Hyun-soo at centre back, and Mohammed Al Buriak at right back. We've got Mohammed Kanu and Al Faraj in central midfield. We've got Salam Al Dasari on the left, Matthias Pereira in attacking midfielder, and Moreira on the right. And up front, we've got Gomez. So that's the kind of shape Al Hilal are going for there. Apologies if I've butchered any of those names just now. But yeah, and for Pohang, well, we do have the Pohang graphic to hand because the clubs do do release them. So I'll just put that on the screen here for everyone to enjoy. Yeah. This is not a podcast. This is a far more
I'm
informal.
looking forward to seeing Jang Hyun-soo though play for Al Hilal. It's been a while since I've seen him play, but there you go. There is the Pohang lineup. It's Manuel Palacios been given the nod to start up front. Obviously, no Lee Sung-mo. He's not allowed to travel outside of Korea due to a problem with his volunteer work that he needs to do as part of the deal when you get military exemption. He hasn't done enough hours, basically. Surely somebody must have said to him, you might need to get these done if you want to go out of the country at all. So poor planning on his part, or maybe just a bit of carelessness.
Yeah. There was also the issue with a lot of the actual community service things that he could apply for. A lot of these things, they were cancelled due to COVID. So it's actually been quite hard to pick up hours. But yeah, you'd think.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, in that case, then surely they can make an exception.
Yeah.
But one thing that I thought was quite interesting was when this was announced in the news media a couple of weeks ago. Kim Ki-dong, the manager of Pohang, said that he sort of acknowledged that he has no Lee Sung-mo, but he said that he's going to play a quote unquote zero top, so obviously no out and out striker. And I thought, if you're Lee Ho-jae, he's only 21, first year pro, but he scored those 2 goals in that kind of comeback win against Gwangju, where they were 2-1 down and they ended up winning 3-2. You must be thinking, well, what about me? I can try and do a job. He is on the bench, so I'm sure we'll see him at some point. But yeah, it's the same shape as we always see from Pohang, 4-2-3-1. Im Sang-hyuk there, interesting, and also it's quite nice to see Shin Jin-ho being played really far forward there in that sort of number 10 role. He's usually a bit deeper, but Lee Soo-bin is in there. It's a DM. Not had too much football, really. He's been out of the team. He's been kept out of the team for much of this season, but he's back in there again.
Yeah. We have a question in here from Mike Baston. Does Lee Sung-mo's absence affect how Pohang will play? Well, we've just said, Kim Ki-dong was thinking about going zero top, but do you think zero top? That's the how it's been transliterated. I know it's just become part of my general vocab now.
Yeah, but I think because Lee Sung-mo he has got an aerial presence. He's quite a tall young man, and as we saw with the third goal against Nagoya, where it was kind of a long diagonal ball across, and he chested it down and then volleyed it. They don't really have that option now. They're going to have to try and work their way up the pitch a little bit, I think, and be a bit more patient with things. But I think what that might force them to do is just to sort of invite Al Hilal onto them. Try to say, well, you're the home team. You can try and break us down and try and wait until the second half before they can try and find some space. Now they don't have that option. It will, I think, affect how they play, but they've known about this now for enough time. They've had nearly a week in Saudi, I think it is. So they will, I'm sure, have been working on lots of different kind of formulas. And this is the one that we've seen. This is the one that Kim Ki-dong has picked. So yeah, we'll see how Palacios does. We know he's quick and powerful. We know that he can. The last thing you want if you're an Al Hilal defender is having him running at you. But we'll see how that all unfolds.
Indeed. Right. So that is the lineups. Before we make our predictions, actually, we're going to play some snippets of some recent interviews we've done with Shin Jin-ho and also with Alex Grant, a shorter version of the one we did on the pod last week. But we're going to play those two. We're going to take a little bit of time to look at these lineups ourselves, and then we're going to give our predictions. Paul, if you have any questions, please get them in the comments, and we'll answer them after the break. So here's Shin Jin-ho.
간다는 거는 선수 개인적으로도 그렇고 팀적으로도 그렇고 굉장히 영광스럽게 생각을 하고요. 네. 또 지금 우리가 올해 어려운 상황이었음에도 불구하고 정말 코칭 스태프하고 선수들이 정말 열심히 최선을 다해서 해줘서 이렇게 결승전에 진출을 한 거에 대해서 예, 또 작년에 울산에 있을 때와는 다르게 감회가 새롭습니다. 일단 뭐 네 번째 우승에 대해서 신경을 쓴다기보다는 일단 결승에 진출을 했기 때문에 양 팀 다 정말 만반의 준비를 할 거라고 생각을 하고 있고, 정말 저희가 사우디 원정을 가는 만큼 굉장히 어려울 거라고 생각을 하고 있어요. 예, 그렇게 예상을 하고 준비를 하고 있기 때문에 저희는 후회 없이 정말 모든 걸 쏟아붓고 나올 생각으로 준비를 하고 있기 때문에 그 부분들은 지금 선수들이 숙지를 잘하고 있습니다. 일단은 우승을 경험하고 못한 것과는 차이가 큰 것이라고 생각을 해요. 저는 그 우승이라는 타이틀을 갖고 나서 개인적으로도 그렇고 굉장히 큰 자신감을 얻었고, 어떤 방법적이라는 것보다는 그런 심리적으로 주는 그런 자신감과 어떤 경험이 저는 굉장히 크다고 생각을 하고, 일단 사우디에서는 정말 많은 관중들이 들어와서 저희가 정말 원정에 가서 그 상대팀 홈팬들 앞에서 경기를 해야 되는 게 사실인데, 제가 아는 선에서 제 경험 안에서 선수들에게 전달을 하고 또 팀적으로 도움을 줄 수 있는 부분들을 좀 주려고 하고 있습니다. 일단은 아까도 말씀드렸다시피 원정 경기이고 상대 홈 관중들이 많을 거라고 생각을 해서 뭐 사실 뭐 단판에 대해서는 어떻게 보면은 저희가 전략적으로 준비를 하는 거에 대해서는 좀 고무적이게 생각을 하고요. 원정 경기 그 많은 관중들 앞에서 경기를 뛴다는 것 자체는 유리한 상황은 아닌 것 같습니다. 뭐 지금 저희 팀 스쿼드 상으로도 그렇고 상대 팀과 비교를 했을 때 뭐 어떤 부분을 봐도 유리한 상황은 아닌 것 같지만, 그 부분은 뭐 저희가 인정을 하고 도전하는 마음으로 준비를 하고 있기 때문에 그 부분에 대해서는 뭐 전혀 염려를 하지 않고 그렇게 준비를 하고 있습니다. 일단 뭐 올 시즌 같은 경우에는 저희 팀 선수들이 정말 끈끈한 모습을 보여줬고, 경기장에서도 그렇고 정말 저희가 훈련장이나 이런 생활 속에서도 정말 한 팀으로 이렇게 같이 똘똘 뭉쳐서 지내는 것을 봤을 때 우리 팀이 결승으로 갈 수 있는 충분한 그런 자격을 갖추지 않았나 팀적으로 그렇게 생각을 하고 있고요. 그 부분이 일단은 가장 큰 강점이라고 생각을 하고, 그런 부분들이 이제 경기장에서 정말 이렇게 결승을 갈 수 있는 그런 결과로 이어졌다고 생각을 하고 있습니다.
Well, next game then really is the ACL, isn't it? For you as well. So congratulations on that, a belated one for that. But what an achievement that's been from this team, and it just has it quite sunk in yet?
Well, the last time we spoke, I mean, we were going into it, weren't we? Really, the game against Nagoya and Ulsan, and I remember saying we felt confident going into those games, and yeah, it's surreal. I mean, I think we deserve to be there. We deserve to be in the final, going off how we played in the competition. Yeah, like I've said in your previous interview, that in the league we haven't been consistent. And it's cost us at times, and the position in the league that we're in is probably justified. But we've been absolutely immense in the Champions League, and the boys have stepped up. And like I said, we've deserved to be in the final. So it's going to be an amazing experience for every player, because it's not often you can say you can get to a final. It's extremely hard to get to any final, whether it be domestically or in competition as big as the Champions League.
Yeah, and obviously you got the goal, and I think you said to Ryan you weren't quite sure what to do with the celebration.
Yeah, I spoke to Ryan after the game because he was at the press conference, and I've not been in too many of them this season. So I said hello when he did. He said, "What was the celebration all about?" And I said, "Mate, I had no idea where to run. I thought about running to the fans. I thought about taking my shirt off, but you don't want to see my pasty English skin, and I didn't know whether I was on I didn't know whether I was on a yellow card or not. So I thought I might get sent off. So just ran towards the subs bench, and like I said to Ryan, I thought they'd all be happy over there. So, and they were ecstatic. So it was great.
Absolutely, yeah. And what a great ball it was in as well from Mario Kovacic as well. Great ball in for him, and it's good because he's had quite a difficult first season in K-League, but that must have been good for his confidence.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's probably, if you look at the full 90 minutes, Mario, I think, was probably the best player on the pitch. He played out of position. He was asked to do a job at right wing, so a position he's not been all too familiar with all season. And I think if you ask anyone within the club, Mario is one of the best trainers within the squad. And unfortunately, he's not had as many minutes as probably what he would have liked throughout the course of the season. So, I mean, it's a credit to himself that he keeps working hard in training. And he's whenever he does get the opportunity to play, he's always putting in 110%. So he's a good guy to have in the squad, a good player. And he made it a little difficult for me, I will say. it wasn't the easiest header, but I guess if he put it somewhere else, it might not have gone in. So yeah, lots of thanks to Mario.
Right, so up next then obviously is Al Hilal, and this is obviously the race for 4 titles, because obviously Pohang right now have 3 titles, so have Al Hilal. So it's kind of, you're going to make history one way or the other. It's going to be a huge game. Is that kind of thing weighing on your mind, or are you just thinking about the 90 minutes and that's it?
It'd be nice, wouldn't it, for the club to kind of go outright and have four titles in the Champions League and leave Al Hilal on 3. I don't think that's something that's playing on anyone's mind. It's just probably an added bonus, really. We just want to go there and win it. That's what we set out to do from the start of the season, and that's what we'll be looking to do whilst we're there.
Yeah, obviously they are a very big team, very strong. Perhaps be the favourites, because they won it a couple of years ago. They're playing on home soil as well, but the game's over one leg. And as we've seen with Pohang this season, in that kind of scenario, you just can't rule yourselves out, can you?
No, I think it plays into our advantage massively. And also the fact that we're playing in Saudi, because from what I've seen on TV, obviously I've never played in Saudi, but especially in those areas of the world, you can see that if the home team, things aren't going particularly well for them in the game, it's quite a hostile environment, it seems, and the fans will probably start getting on their back. And like I said, that can play into our advantage massively. And the away fans will get on the backs of the home team. So I think it will just soak it up. We've not played in front of a big crowd this season because of COVID restrictions and whatnot. That's another thing. So I think all the lads really going into the game will be thoroughly excited and just willing to soak up the atmosphere and the experience.
Yeah. All right. Well, Alex, thank you very much for your time again. Good luck. And hopefully we'll be celebrating a Pohang win.
Yeah, let's hope so, mate. Cheers,
right.
Paul. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. See you in a bit.
Jin Ho, both of them in action tonight against Al Hilal. Both the full interviews can be heard on the recent K-League United podcast, but obviously time is dwindling if you still haven't listened to that episode yet. But Paul, we're going to wrap things up here, let everyone get themselves settled for tonight's match. Shall we just have a quick preview and prediction?
Yes. Score predictions, goal scorers, being asked there by Rascal Misaki. So yes, thank you for your questions and comments first and foremost. So hello to all who are watching and tuning in, and obviously sending in their comments. But I'm going to go with a 2-1 Pohang win after extra time, and I think Im Sang Hyop is going to score a winner.
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be glorious. And Scott Whitelock will also agree.
Yeah,
if he's watching.
I think he's going to quit football if that happens. But yes, the romantic in me wants Pohang to do it. I think they've stunned teams to get here, stunned Ulsan to get here. Did the work against Nagoya. They've got the talent, but I think Al Hilal are a far more difficult unit. I think Pohang's biggest worry won't just be goal miss. Obviously, he's the goal scoring threat, but you got to worry about Matheus Pereira, the former West Brom player. He's in attacking midfield. He's got 4 assists for them already this season in domestic league, but in the actual Champions League, their right back Mohamed Al Buryak, he's also got 4 assists in this competition. So there are players down there. I think the Pohang's left with In Sang-hyup and Kang Sang-woo. I think that is going to be targeted. So, I do want to say a Pohang win. I really do, but I see Al Hilal possibly sneaking it. But it'll be tight. I'm not expecting it to be a one-sided affair by any means. I imagine Pohang will give it a go.
We've got some questions in. One from Kyle Gobler. He says, it's a late kickoff time in Korea. Game time, coffee or beer? Well, I'm quite tired, so I'm having a tea. Don't want to be up too much. Don't want to be too wired. But I need to make sure that I'm awake because the game is at 1 a.m. here. So it's a tea for me. Tin for you, Bins, or?
I think it might just be water and just hopefully get through the night. But yeah, it is a late one. We do have one more question in from Luke Evans, and he's kind of touched on what Alex Grant was speaking about there. How big of an effect will the crowd have?
Well, it's interesting that Shin Jin-ho and Alex Grant had kind of contrasting views on what that's going to be like. Shin Jin-ho seemed petrified of playing in front of a big crowd, but Alex Grant doesn't seem that bothered about it. He actually said, as you just heard, that it might work in their favor. I think, playing in front of a big crowd is going to be the players who haven't done that before. It's going to be difficult for them. I'm looking at some of the less experienced players that amongst Pohang's ranks. Park Sung-up, the right back, for example, he wouldn't have played in anything like this before. Lee Jun, the goalkeeper. The rest of them are relatively experienced. Obviously, Lee Soo-bin played at Jeonbuk. He's in the first team at Pohang before his loan spell at Jeonbuk. He would have played in fairly big crowds as before, but those two in particular, in kind of key areas of the pitch as well, those are going to be, it's about how they will handle it. But I just think, more than that, it's one leg. I think it's over one leg, and that's going to be why I think Pohang is going to win. I just think that I know it makes no sense because of Al Hilal are at home. They've got such a strong team, strong squad. And as you just said, Matthew, that starting lineup is full of quality players, but just over one game, Pohang have got nothing to lose. No one's expecting them to win, really. And I just think, it's going to be their night.
Well, we shall see. So we're going to let everyone get settled in before kickoff. We're heading out now, but there is no podcast this week. There was 2 podcasts last week. We had the Champions League podcast and the FA Cup podcast. The FA Cup is tomorrow night between Daegu and Jeonnam. Just the first leg. You can listen to Ryan Walters and Jungmoo Yeol. But I think that for us, we'll be back next week with a preview of the final weekend in K-League 1 with a review of the FA Cup and a review of how this game goes tonight. And as somebody is down here saying, as Pier Francesco Costa is saying down here in the comments, may the best team win this evening. I hope it's a great game. I hope you enjoy watching it. And best of luck, K-League. Good night.
There we go.